David lounges alone in his new apartment, lazily sipping beer and flipping through TV channels, when suddenly a woman appears out of nowhere, furious and demanding that he get out of her home. Stunned, David argues that he just rented this place, but before he can make sense of what's happening, she storms off to call the police. He follows her into the next room, only to find it completely empty. She's gone, as if she never existed. But who is this mysterious woman claiming the apartment as her own? And where did she vanish? To find out, we go back in time to Dr. Elizabeth Masterson, a dedicated young doctor. The story begins with her sitting in a misty, dreamlike garden. The camera slowly pans through the fog before focusing on her chair, which looks oddly out of place in the elegant surroundings. Suddenly, Elizabeth wakes up. She's actually in a hospital break room, not a garden. A colleague tells her she fell asleep and needs to go home since she's been on duty for 23 straight hours. But Elizabeth insists on continuing her shift, determined to prove herself worthy of the attending doctor position. She works tirelessly around the hospital, efficient, caring, and well-liked by both patients and staff. We learn that Brett, her competitive coworker, is also aiming for the same promotion. Elizabeth's sister, Abby, is expecting her for dinner, a setup meant for Elizabeth to meet someone special. As you are watching, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. After finishing her call with Abby, Elizabeth and Brett encounter their supervisor, Dr. Walsh. He tells them a shooting victim has just been brought in. Both volunteer to take the case, but since Brett's been on duty for fewer hours, he's assigned the patient. When Brett leaves, Dr. Walsh tells Elizabeth that her dedication and excellent care have earned her the attending doctor role, but he insists she's done enough for the day and should go home to rest. As Elizabeth heads out, she runs into Brett in the parking lot. There's visible tension as he offers a half-hearted congratulations on her promotion. On her way to Abby's house, Elizabeth calls to apologize for being late, but Abby reassures her that it's fine. The man she was supposed to meet hasn't shown up yet anyway. Just then, a truck suddenly speeds toward Elizabeth, and the screen cuts to black. The scene shifts to David Abbott, who's searching for a fully furnished apartment to rent. His real estate agent shows him a series of bizarre and unsuitable places. As they're about to give up, a flyer gets blown into David's face by the wind, advertising an apartment they hadn't come across before. They visit it and find it surprisingly nice. The realtor explains that it's only available month to month due to some unusual circumstances.
Despite the mystery, David decides to take it, since it seems perfect. Soon, we see David lounging around, and Elizabeth suddenly appears in the apartment, furious and claiming it's hers. They argue in confusion until she storms off to call the police. And when David follows, she's vanished without a trace. Convinced he's hallucinating, David visits his friend John, who also happens to be his therapist. John suggests that David simply needs to get out more, and assures him that these visions will fade away. Ignoring that advice, David isolates himself further, continuing to drink and laze around. Elizabeth keeps reappearing, leading him to suspect she might be the ghost of a former tenant. To find answers, David visits a quirky bookshop where he meets Daryl, a strange but insightful man who hands him several books about spirits. Back at home, David confronts Elizabeth again, still unable to convince her that she's dead. Frustrated, she tries to annoy him into moving out. In desperation, David calls in various people to cleanse the apartment. First a priest, then a group of women performing an Asian cleansing ritual, followed by some amateur ghost hunters, and finally, Daryl himself. When Daryl arrives, he senses Elizabeth's presence and notes that her energy is unusually strong, perhaps too strong for a spirit. He suggests that maybe she isn't really dead. Daryl also tells David that he needs to let go of the ghost haunting his own heart, the memory of his late wife, who passed away 2 years earlier. After Daryl leaves, Elizabeth gently asks David about his wife, and it becomes clear how deeply her loss still affects him. David still struggles to move on from his past. If you're enjoying the story so far, make sure to like the video. Disturbed by his earlier conversation with Elizabeth, he agrees to meet his friend John for drinks. But the evening takes an unexpected turn. Elizabeth follows him there and, in a moment of frustration, actually possesses him, forcing him to leave the bar. Once outside, she admits she needs his help to discover what really happened to her, since she can't remember anything. David reluctantly agrees to help. After all, if he refuses,
He'd have to admit he's been talking to someone no one else can see. Together, they start visiting Elizabeth's former neighbors, asking if anyone remembers her. Most people barely knew her, though one woman takes an interest in David and starts flirting with him. As they follow a few leads, they eventually learn the shocking truth. Elizabeth is alive, but in a coma, at the very hospital where she used to work. After locating Elizabeth's body in the hospital, David goes home, while Elizabeth stays behind, able to pass through walls and observe people. She sees her colleagues, including Brett, who has now taken over the attending doctor position. Her sister Abby arrives at the hospital and discovers that Elizabeth had a living will, meaning the final decision about her life support lies with her. Elizabeth rushes back to the apartment, only to find the flirty neighbor woman making advances on David. Heartbroken, she watches as the woman enters his room and invites him in. Feeling dejected, Elizabeth retreats to the rooftop to be alone. Moments later, David appears on the rooftop and tells her he sent the woman home. Elizabeth confides that she originally rented the apartment because she planned to create a garden on the roof. David opens up about his own life. He reveals that he was once a successful landscape architect who designed beautiful gardens. He takes Elizabeth to see one of his creations, the very same garden she dreamed about in the film's opening scene. Moved by her words, David declares that he won't let her die. David and Elizabeth visit Abby's house, trying to stop her from signing the papers to end Elizabeth's life support. But Abby, frightened when David claims he can see Elizabeth's spirit, chases him away with a knife. Determined to save her, they visit Daryl, hoping he can help them reconnect her spirit with her body. But Daryl warns them not to interfere and reminds them that David is the only one who can see her for a reason. That night, Elizabeth asks David to stay up and talk with her until morning. Determined to save her, David decides to steal her body from the hospital to keep her alive. He enlists his friend John, borrowing his van for the plan. At the hospital, David convinces John that Elizabeth is real, revealing that he was actually her blind date, the one who never showed up the night of her accident. When they try to take Elizabeth's body, Brett confronts them, and David knocks him out before security intervenes. Amid the chaos, Elizabeth's respirator is disconnected, and her spirit begins to fade. In desperation, David kisses her, reviving her soul just before he's dragged away. Elizabeth's body miraculously awakens. Though alive, she has no memory of David. Later, both live sadly apart until she moves back into her apartment. On the rooftop, she finds David finishing her dream garden. When their hands touch, her memories return, and they kiss. The camera zooms out, revealing the apartment slowly turning into a snow globe resting in Daryl's hand. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share the video with your friends to support more stories like this.